Wait, why is he here? I wondered. I had come to the prison as a volunteer, providing haircuts to inmates. And there, unexpectedly, was my husband, the same man who had disappeared 15 years ago in a maritime accident. The shock of seeing him alive mixed with overwhelming joy. But he didn't recognize me. He was engrossed in conversation with other hairdressers. Eventually, I left without speaking to him. However, later, the hairdresser who had been attending to my husband revealed something astonishing. Learning the truth from 15 years ago left me utterly stunned. As a hairdresser, I run a hair salon. 15 years ago, at the age of 35, I married Jack, who was 2 years older than me. Our relationship blossomed when he became a regular customer at my salon. One day, while looking at his reflection in the mirror, Jack grinned and said,
"Mary, your salon's success is because you genuinely care about your clients."
At that time, my salon had just opened its third branch in the same town, with around 10 employees. Jack's compliments filled me with joy, and our conversations during his haircuts were delightful. He often invited me to dinner after closing hours, and our relationship quickly deepened. Before long, he proposed, and we became a happily married couple. After our wedding, we embarked on our honeymoon, a week spent at an inn near the sea. When we returned, our newly purchased home awaited us, ready to welcome the newlyweds. I was in a new place, eager to explore the city with my husband while gazing at the sea. I had filled my guidebook with sticky notes, ready for a leisurely adventure. Upon arriving at our inn, which boasted a window overlooking the ocean, I anticipated a graceful experience. However, Jack surprised me by suggesting something unexpected.
"I'll go fishing. They rent boats and fishing gear here."
"But we just got here," I protested. "And you know I can't handle boats. I get terribly seasick." I had taken motion sickness medication several times before this trip, and Jack was well aware of my condition. Ignoring my concerns, he replied,
"Mary, stay at the inn and rest. You must be tired from the journey. I'll catch some fish, and the innkeeper can prepare dinner for us."
As he hurried off, I couldn't help feeling disappointed. I longed to spend time with Jack, but instead, I found myself alone in the room, revisiting the guidebook I had diligently studied. The day slipped away, leaving me feeling crestfallen. However, an unexpected turn of events occurred. Even during dinner time, there was no word from him. When I tried calling, there was no answer. The innkeeper confirmed that my husband hadn't returned. Growing increasingly worried, I contacted the local police and filed a missing person report. By then, it was late at night, so I returned to the inn with heavy steps, knowing that the search for my husband would begin the next morning. The shocking news came the following day. "Wait, they found the capsized boat?" I asked, my head spinning. According to the police, they discovered a smartphone submerged along with the boat, but they couldn't confirm his whereabouts. As a result, my husband was officially declared missing. How could this happen? I wondered, feeling numb. The week that was supposed to be our honeymoon turned into a desperate search for Jack. Yet, he never returned. Alone in what should have been our marital home, I looked at the dishes we had chosen together and the chair where Jack was meant to sit in the study. Each item reminded me of him, and tears flowed uncontrollably. How many times did I regret not holding him back that day? A gaping hole had formed in my heart, and before I knew it, 7 years had passed. Since that day, I had been cleaning my husband's study regularly, hoping he would return at any moment. As I dusted the neatly arranged novels and magazines on the shelf, my hand snagged on something, causing books to tumble. "Oh no," I muttered. When I bent down to retrieve them, I noticed a brown envelope hidden at the back of the shelf. I hadn't cleaned there before, so it was no wonder I hadn't noticed it. Upon closer inspection, the envelope bore the name of a dubious financial institution, filling me with fear. Realizing this was too heavy a burden to bear alone, I immediately contacted an acquaintance and shared everything. They suggested calling the number written on the envelope to find out what was going on. Little did I know that what awaited me afterward would reveal facts I had been blissfully unaware of at the time. Huh? Jack had a $250,000 debt? I never heard about that. According to my acquaintance's confirmation, my husband incurred significant losses in the stock market and borrowed money from that company to repay it. I was stunned, my mind going blank, and dizziness washing over me. Technically, if I renounced the inheritance, I wouldn't need to repay the debt. However, I learned that doing so would mean letting go of the house filled with memories we were supposed to share. Well, then I'll carry the debt and keep living. I resolved. I put my second and third salons up for sale, downsized the staff to a minimum, and worked tirelessly as a hairdresser to repay the debt. As the years passed and my husband remained missing for 15 years, the $250,000 debt finally seemed within reach of complete repayment. I gradually gained some personal time. During that period, I volunteered. I wanted to see smiles on people's faces, just like Jack's when I cut their hair. Perhaps I had been chasing his shadow all along. One day, as part of a community service initiative, I visited a prison. The volunteer activity involved cutting and grooming inmates' hair. While engaging with the male inmates, I trimmed their overgrown hair and shaved their beards, bringing smiles to their faces. However, my attention shifted to a female hairdresser nearby, and I nearly dropped my scissors in shock. There, before me, stood my husband, the same man who was supposed to have passed away 15 years ago. Wait, Jack? Why is he here? A mix of joy at his unexpected survival and curiosity about why he was in prison raced through me. Jack seemed oblivious to my presence, chatting and smiling with the female stylist. I noticed the dimple just below his left eye when he laughed, a feature that had always warmed my heart. Despite the certainty that this was indeed Jack, I was unable to let go immediately, and time passed without us having a conversation. My heart raced, but I couldn't recall who I spoke to or what we discussed. If that person is really Jack, I might be able to meet with him later and hear what happened. I wonder. After finishing the volunteer activity, I was able to talk to the staff who had been in charge of my husband. However, later, the hairdresser who had been attending to my husband revealed something astonishing. Learning the truth from 15 years ago left me utterly stunned. As it turned out, Jack had successfully faked his own death years ago to escape a massive debt. He bragged about it, claiming he orchestrated an accident and disappeared.
The debt was so overwhelming.
He chuckled.
That's why I decided to vanish. I resorted to theft just to survive.
Perhaps he lacked anyone else to impress, as he openly shared these details with the hairdresser. According to her, Jack had rented a boat, intentionally capsized it offshore to avoid GPS tracking, and submerged his smartphone. Then, he escaped on a small lifeboat, leaving everything behind.
If stealing gets me out in a few months to a few years, and I get regular meals here, wouldn't it be smarter to ditch the debt?
Well, I suppose so.
While volunteering, the hairdresser had never delved into such personal conversations with inmates. But now I knew the truth. My husband intentionally burdened me with debt and vanished. Fueled by anger, I immediately sought answers from the prison authorities. They revealed that Jack would be released in 2 weeks after serving about 3 years for repeated theft during the past 15 years. Determined not to miss this chance, I prepared for revenge until his release. And on the awaited day, I was the first to greet him, saying, "Welcome back, Jack." His eyes widened in disbelief.
Mary, why are you here?
I replied, "Surprised? You remembered me." But my smile masked my true feelings. Without delay, I introduced the man standing beside me. "Meet my lawyer. He'll help me claim divorce and compensation from you." Jack retorted,
What? You had debts. Where did you find money for a lawyer?
I calmly stated, "Indeed, it seems that intentionally burdening me with the $250,000 payment was your intention." Jack's face fell, realizing he couldn't take back his words. With a steely gaze, I led him to a nearby cafe, explaining, "True, I couldn't afford a lawyer, but there are resources for people like me." I had learned about free legal consultations from an acquaintance. To be honest, even as I explained it, the situation felt like a made-up story to me. The staff assisting me were equally surprised, but they explained the potential financial support available. And so, step by step, I pursued legal proceedings against my husband.
Well, it's true I had debts. But the boat capsizing was genuinely an accident. Afterward, I was swept away by the waves to a different place. No phone, no wallet. I couldn't make it back to you.
His eyes pleaded for my belief. "So you're saying you stole to survive?"
Exactly. I didn't intentionally burden you with the debt. It was an accident.
And there's no lie in those words? Jack seemed relieved that I trusted him, nodding emphatically. Finally, the truth came out. Internally, I cheered. "All right. Now let's prove that you left me with a $250,000 payment."
Ha? How do you plan to do that after 15 years?
He looked surprised, then quickly regained his composure. "I won't let you deny this document." I pulled out a certain piece of paper. It was a promissory note for your debt. My name was written without my consent in the co-guarantor section, and even my signature was forged. However, when Jack saw it, he just snorted dismissively.
If your name is written there, then you must have written it, right? What does this prove?
Did you think I hadn't requested handwriting analysis? Your handwriting has already been exposed. Seeing my husband struggle for words, I moved on to the next evidence. The proof that you disappeared is the missing person report filed during our honeymoon trip.
You seem to want to steer the conversation against me.
Jack still tried to put up a front, but sweat appeared on his forehead, and he nervously fidgeted with his fingers.
But, don't you need evidence that I never intended to repay from the beginning?
Jack found an escape route.
There's no way to provide evidence of human emotions, right?
He wore a smug expression as he said this. However, if he thought I would let him off the hook, he was sorely mistaken. "Oh, did you forget? Weren't you the one who confessed voluntarily?
What are you talking about?
2 weeks ago, you were bragging to the volunteer hairdresser, weren't you?" At that moment, my husband's face turned pale as if it were drawn in a picture.
Were you there?
"If we can get her testimony from that time, it'll be evidence that you never intended to repay," I continued. He tried to dismiss the hairdresser's testimony, claiming we were just colleagues at the volunteer event. But we had only met for the first time there. Although we worked in the same field, it was our initial encounter, and she wouldn't know my background. I continued to corner my husband relentlessly. And then, I decided to play my final card. It seems the police are investigating you. This time, for fraud against me. I revealed. Jack visibly swallowed nervously, and I leaned in closer. Just so you know, even if you're released and try to work somewhere, I'll make sure every place knows exactly what you've done. My husband must have seen me as a demon. Tears welled up in his eyes, and he began to apologize, crawling on the cafe floor.
Please forgive me. Let's start a new life as a couple.
It's fine, you don't need to do that. He looked up at me with an expression full of hope, as if wondering if I might forgive him. And that's when I pushed Jack off the cliff. If you pay me compensation for being burdened with your debt and alimony for our divorce, that'll be sufficient.
I can't afford that.
Then borrow from someone else. After all, that's your specialty, isn't it? I smiled at the despicable man who had deceived me all along. I won't let you walk into a new life. I'll make you suffer twice as much as the 15 years I endured. Accept your fate. As he wailed, tears and snot mixing, the police, whom the lawyer had called, arrived. And Jack was taken away. Afterward, my husband confessed everything during police interrogation. With the help of a lawyer, I emerged victorious in court, receiving $250,000 in damages from him and completely repaying the debt. Furthermore, our divorce was finalized, and I obtained a settlement of $30,000 in alimony. Meanwhile, Jack returned to the confines of prison. This time, his sentence extended even further due to deceiving me for 15 years. No one visits him, and I certainly have no intention of doing so. Jack will likely spend his days in that dim cell, isolated and alone. Even if he were released, his tarnished reputation and lack of trust would make survival difficult. To ensure Jack couldn't track me down, I sold the cherished house I had protected for him. I moved into an apartment, enjoying a comfortable and carefree life. Living in the apartment felt like the right choice from the beginning. As a successful salon owner, I might even reopen the third branch I had once let go. In this way, after letting go of all unnecessary baggage, the world sparkled anew.
How did you find this story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Let's meet in the next video.